Hey, welcome back to Karen's Papercraft. Thank you very much for watching. Today I'm going to show you an easy pop-up card, really the easiest of pop-up cards, and I've made it a wrap over card as well. Have I made you curious? Keep watching and I'll show you how you can make one yourself. And here you have the card. Now the bow you can untie if you want to, but you can also slide it off and slide it back on. Here you have the wrap over part, and when you open it up you have the pop-up. I'll hold it up for you so you can take a good look at it. Isn't it sweet? I'm going to show you how to make the wrap over card and of course how to make the pop-ups, how to adhere them. I'll have some tips and tricks on stamping the bulb fields. I'm going to leave it open because then I can use it as a reference. I suggest we start with the wrap over card. Oh, and before I forget to tell you at all, I've used the Tulip Fields stamp set. I'll hold it up so there's no glare, and the Windmill Fields dies to make this card. I have some Pear Pizzazz cardstock, which is 10 inches by 4 1/8, and we're going to score this. And your first score line is at 2 3/4, then at 5 1/2, five 3/4, and then your next score line is at 8 3/4. But what you could also do when you are using your stamping trimmer is score on the right at 1 1/4 inches. That will work out at the same distance. I'm going to move it up here because we're going to do some cutting. You see your panels and you have the really narrow bit and then a narrow bit. This has to be at the bottom. And then I'm going to cut from the 1 to 3rd score line down on the right and on the left, 1/2 inch. So I'm putting it in my trimmer again at the 1/2 inch mark, and I'm moving my blade over the paper, put it on that 1 to 3rd score line and then cut down. And the same thing here, I just turn over my paper for that, it makes it easier. Again, I'm looking for this 1 to 3rd score line and I cut down. And that's how you create the wrap over flap. All I have to do now is, of course, cut it off. And then you can fold the score lines. And if you feel that you have a bumpy edge on one of those cut lines, just use your bone folder to flatten them. Then you can do your decorating and of course the pop-ups. Now I've done some preparation beforehand because I didn't want my video to be too long. I've made the pop-ups. I'm going to show you in a minute how to make a pop-up. So these I've already prepared. I've prepared the mats to go on my card and I've used all the stamps from the stamp set. And when I was stamping this one, I noticed that this looks a bit like the detailed trio punch, you see? So I thought it would be nice to have this accent on the card as well. Talk about coordination by stamping up. And I'm going to adhere the scenery that I've stamped on this end. So I'll go and do that, and then when I've done that I'll be back and I'll show you how to do the stamping of the bulb fields on the inside of the card and how to do the pop-ups. To show you what I've done so far is I've adhered my panels here to the right and I've adhered this one on the front panel. I'm going to show you how you can make the bulb fields for the inside of the card in one go, and then I'm going to show you how to make the pop-ups. I have here a piece of Whisper White cardstock, which is a basic white. I mean, it was Whisper White for years and years. It's basic white, Karin. And this is 4 inches by 5 1/4. And I've put a pencil mark halfway there, which is at 2 5/8. That helps me to put it in the center on my grid paper, because I'm going to use my grid paper as a reference. The stamp itself is wobbly, so you want to make sure it's absolutely straight on your block. So what I do is I just put it on my grid paper, let go, and then see if it's straight. I'm comparing it against the lines on the grid paper. I'm putting my paper back in, and I'm stamping in Highland Heather, Petal Pink, Fresh Freesia and Pool Party. And I'm starting with the line which is at the top where the horizon disappears. And I'm using my grid paper. There's this opening in the stamp, can you see? And I'm putting that on top of my pencil mark and also the grid line there. Now my head may be in view. If it's really bad, I'll cut it out later. If it's not too bad, you'll see some of my grey locks. Now I'm using this grid line and that grid line to center my stamp, because I want to stamp as near as I can to the top of my paper. Now, that's perfect. Cleaning my stamp. And then I'm going to put this stamp in, and I'm starting with the one in the center. I've found that that works best. So I'm inking it up. And again, it's easy if you take your pad to the block, then put the block on the pad. At least I think it's easier when you have a big stamp. Again, I've centered my paper, and now I'm using that point and the middle there, and I'm trying to center it, and I'm putting it up as far as I can. So I'm checking top and bottom before I push down. Now the cardstock is too big for my tulip field. Shouldn't have closed this. What you do then is you ink up the bottom half of the stamp and you move it over. See? Nobody sees the difference. And you have made your bulb field a bit longer. I'm going to repeat this with the other colours. Now all I have to do is cut this in half at the 2 5/8 mark. And I can adhere it to the card base. And then I'm ready to put my pop-ups on. In a minute I'm going to start with the mill, and then I've got the 2 trees, and I'm going to make the one in the front, which has just 1 tree. And first I'll show you how I made the embellishments. They were all made in the same way. So I stamped and I cut 2 more, which I adhere on top of each other. And the tree I stamped in Evening Evergreen, but I'm using a sponge dauber to ink it up with some soft succulent to fill in the white spaces on the tree. I just thought it looked better that way. Then I can adhere them one on top of the other. I have put the extra cardstock on for some extra sturdiness. Now then, for the pop-up, you need some Pear Pizzazz, and you need a piece which is 3.5 by 7/8, and if I'm correct, this is 3.5. Yes, it is. So then I can cut off 7/8 of an inch, and you're going to score this at 1 3/4, so halfway. That's not 1 3/4 anymore, it moved. And that's better. And at 1/2 inch. You can't hold it anymore, so just put this ruler thing down, and then you push and it'll stay in place, and then you score. On this bottom part, so the narrowest part, you're going to put some tear and tape. You need a good strong glue, and I find tear and tape less messy than the Tombow, which needs some time to dry. Then you fold it, and you use your bone folder to give it a good crease, and also this middle score line. Make sure you fold it straight, and you use your bone folder. Now then, you put it on your grid paper, get a pencil out, and from either end you mark a 1/4 inch, so just one of those, and here as well. And you're going to cut from the corner to your mark, and again corner to the mark, just 2 pieces in one go. Then you have the right angle for it to be able to stick onto your card. Right, then the tulips, I have already cut them, and I used the adhesive sheets, finicky picking them up, and I'm going to need my silicone craft sheet. I'm going to stick these on, and removing the backing is going to be a bit more difficult because it is so tiny, the paper almost seems to break, so it's difficult to get it off in one piece. So I'll start with the pool party one here. Where's my... I wonder if it'll be okay now, because it has happened that I couldn't get it off in one piece. There you see it tears, so you just start all over again. Then you stick it on, just along the bottom, and you continue with the other two. Now these tulips stick out, and I don't want the stickiness, so I'm using a powder tool to make sure they don't adhere themselves to places I don't want them to be adhered. You can cut away the tulips you don't need. And you have another pop-up ready. Now then, how to adhere a tree. I'm using my mini glue dots for that. And here you can use one full size because there's room for it. And then there and there, I just put one which I've folded in half. One goes there, and the other one goes there towards the bottom. And then you can stick it on. Here's your, oh, I forgot to fold it again with my tulips on. Should have done that before. Okay, so give it a good crease. Now, of course, you don't want to stick your tree onto the folded line, so stay away from the folded line. And then put your tree on, and you see there's no glue sticking out, which you don't want. Glue sticking out, I mean. Now then, to put it in the card, most important is that you start with your windmill and you fold it over, and you want your windmill to go that way, see? So this is how you stick it in. And now I'm looking for my slanted line, and I'm putting that towards the fold line, and I want my mill in the middle. I don't want the wing, not called wings, the sails. I don't want the sails to stick out. In Dutch it's wieken. So I remove the backing from this one, roughly in the middle, and I'm keeping this on the same line with my fold, and then I'm putting it down, and then remove the backing from the other end, and in a minute I'm going to fold my card over, and then you see your windmill is on. Now the others are more difficult to attach in a way, because you can't fold them anymore, because then it'll stick to your, well, this one would work, but what I do is I use my pop-up there as a guideline. So I just take my little tree and I'm sticking it behind and now here I can remove the backing. It's a bit more tricky, I know, but it works. I'm putting it in at more or less the same angle, and then you can fold your card double. It's a bit bulky, that's why I've created this little flap. Now it works best if you fold it back again on itself and give them a push, then your card will stay open. See? Now, this is the card almost finished. If you liked my project, please give me a like, and if you have a question or a comment, please leave it as well. I'd love to hear from you. Now to stick my card together, or to keep it together, not to stick it together, I'm done with sticking. You need about 18 inches of the ribbon, so that was 16 and 2 more. And I'm putting my punch on top to hold the card down. All I have to do now is tie a bow. But first I want both ends of the same length, and that's better. So you tie it over, you make a loop on the right, here you pull the left one over the right and you push it through that loop at the bottom, and then you pull, and you can pull like that, and then your loops will be at the top. And then I'm going to snip off the ends. I don't want to snip them off too short, because in case somebody unties the ribbon and they want to tie the card back together again, they won't be able to if you've made the ends too short. So I'm just using my cigarette lighter to make sure my ends don't fray. And there you have a very pretty card finished. Well, thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.